So do you think, and, people like Aleister Crowley had written about these things and getting in touch with other worlds, and there are a ton of fiction writers that I believe, obviously, I'm a writer, so it's like I know I'm drawing from real feelings and perspectives when I'm writing. It's not just, I know maybe some writers rip stuff off from other people and we're all inspired, but I'm really drawing from true experiences or perspectives. And so I wonder, like, this stuff has been out there for a long time. H.P. Lovecraft wrote about it, century ago. It's like all of these things have happened in the past. I mean, since human existence. And you're saying, there's certain lies about our history and all of that, and alien visitation and hauntings and things like that. Are all of these things connected somehow?
Yes, and I just want to briefly say that you are everything that you're writing, everything that every single person is being creative with is a form of channeling. You are channeling from your other connections of other worlds, of your non-physical self. So when people are writing, it's coming from somewhere. When people are drawing, a depiction of some kind of, being or cartoon or whatever, everything is coming from the universe, coming from somewhere. So everything that we can imagine is existing somewhere. And if it's all channeling, when we get into that state.
I believe that. And a lot of this makes more sense than other perspectives and ideas, or just, attesting it to osmosis, or, oh, that's just the way it is. It's like, well, what does that even mean? And it seems like even science is catching up with this perspective in terms of quantum physics, quantum sciences. Um, and so maybe in the future, these ideas, and you're not the only person I've spoken to that has very, this very similar perspective. Do you know what the origins are of this philosophy, or is it just, because it seems like a lot of people are in the know regarding this very philosophy in terms of soul contracts, in terms of many existences, multi existences, and then again, it's aligned with current quantum sciences and perspectives, and I suspect eventually, just through probability, that eventually it's going to catch up and be able to define some of this stuff. And we're going to change. Do you believe that the human being is going to change? They'll be augmented by technology. I mean, all of that stuff seems to be on its way. And will that affect the soul?
Yeah. So what I learned, when I was reaching out about, with channelers to get information, I came across a guy named Rob Gothier, and he channels a few different beings. And what I've learned is that when people are channeling an extraterrestrial being, they are channeling another aspect of themselves. So we would consider it to be a future self, right? Because of the way we experience time. But they're higher dimensional aspects of themselves. Um, so that's the way it works. So we're connected. We are all of us are connected to higher dimensional beings. And when people are visited by beings, more than likely it's because they're connected to them in an oversoul way. So what I learned was that our oversoul, okay, our true essence is a seventh dimensional consciousness, which is non-physical. And so saying that, there's all these other, like, I'm sure you've heard the saying, well, God wanted to experience itself, so it divided itself into another piece so it could actually experience itself from another perspective. Well, that's what the oversoul does. The oversoul is a seventh dimensional non-physical consciousness that, oh well, I'm gonna put little sliver of myself in this life and in this life and this planet and this planet as this being and this being. I mean, from the ancient Egyptian times, those beings that we see, the feline humanoid beings, the reptilian humanoid beings, the canine humanoid beings, those beings are very real. Those beings really exist. They come from the universe, they come from the galaxy, they were here on planet Earth a long time ago. This is not our planet either. Like, this planet belongs to reptilians. The dinosaurs were wiped out by a by a asteroid, but that asteroid was intentionally thrown to the Earth to wipe out the dinosaurs so that humans could actually have a chance at actually evolving. Because that's just what the beings that created us. By the way, seven different races created the human being. So there's gods. We would call them gods, right? These seven different extraterrestrial beings that created the actual human being. But see, again, we're not innately human either. You're not innately a human being. You're a non-physical, energetic being that never stops existing. We're just playing the role as a human being because how else would we experience this life on planet Earth? This is part of playing the role of being a human. But yeah, so humans, were created by 7 different races. And those races were created by other races. And that's the way that consciousness works throughout our galaxy and our universe. There's levels of consciousness. So planet Earth, she's alive. She's her own consciousness. The animals on our planet, they are their own. They are a collective consciousness. They are not divine in the sense that we are, but they're still collective consciousness, and they're here to have their own experience on planet Earth. And there's like water, air, minerals, trees. Those are first density consciousness. And so it goes up and up and up. There's just levels of consciousness. The sun is its own consciousness. The galaxy is its own consciousness. So that's the way that levels of consciousness work throughout our universe. And God would be obviously, the consciousness of the entire universe. So it's not a being, it's not a physical, there's not like some man in the sky with a beard. And that story is just not true. There's no judgment. If you experience hell, if you experience a hellish place, say, a lot of hundreds of NDEs, people that, die literally and they come back, none of them, most of them don't experience the hellish place. But if they do, most of the time, you will learn that they had a religious background, that they came from a religious home. So in their consciousness, they believe that hell existed. So they will create a hell. We create everything. So they create a hell for themselves when they die. And but Jesus, or not even Jesus, a light comes and takes them out of that hellish place. But they created it. So there's no God judging you when you get on the other side. The first thing you experience when you detach from your body is you have a life review. And that in that life review, you get to experience everything that you've done in your life, all the good and all that's not so good. So every fight you get in with somebody, how you made them feel, you get to actually feel that. You get to experience what that felt like. And there's no looking over you, judging you and saying, oh, because you did this, no, you are the judge of yourself and you get to see how you could have done things better. But there's no hell. You're not sentenced to any hell. It just doesn't exist. And everybody experiences, not the same exact thing. The only thing that's, stays the same, and all these hundreds of people that have died and come back, is there's a light. There's a light that appears, and they don't know how they know, but they know that they've known this light for eternity. You don't see faces other than your loved ones that have passed away. They also greet you when you initially died, but you're given an opportunity to come back. Do you want to go back? Most people are forced. They're not forced, but they're manipulated into coming back. Like, well, they're shown their kids, or someone that's close to them that really needs their help still. Or like me, my life was saved from a car accident. I was driving home one night and I was fidgeting with my radio, and I heard in my head, accident, accident, really loud. And I looked up at the road and I was reaching an intersection, and then this car was just frozen in my lane. And I'm like, I'm gonna T-bone the hell, I'm gonna T-bone this car. There's nothing I can do. I'm going 50 miles an hour and I'm reaching this intersection. So I slammed on my brakes and I turned my wheel all the way to the right, and my car, swirled around, and our tires maybe touched. So my life was saved. There was intervention in that moment. And why? Why? I think because, it is so important. Spirit wants everyone that has an experience to share this knowledge with humanity, because it is so dense and so dark, and people are hopeless. And, there's just, people need to know how powerful and magnificent we are, and people just are not learning this. They don't know it. They're not having their own experience because they don't believe that, it's possible.
So where would you say, because I know people have had demonic experiences or dark experiences, they'll walk in a location and experience something that they perceive, through culture and horror films and all this other stuff as something evil, something from some other world. People have seen monsters. They've experienced things in their sleep, bad dreams. Where does that dark world come from?
So I've learned that you cannot experience what you're not the vibration of. So, well, okay, first let me start with ghosts. Okay, so when people die in homes, when you go to ancient homes, homes that are really old, you're gonna have some ghosts there because people have died there. So, they want to hang around and they stick and they hang around there as long as, they want to, and until they move and they go and see the light and move on and go on to their next incarnation. But the ghost, there's no, in the sense of hauntings, now for me, this is my truth, right? Because my mother's truth is very different than mine, because she's experienced, the dark. I have never experienced the dark, so it's not my truth. But from what I've learned, there's just you have to be at a certain vibration. So let's say that you're in a dark place, or that you're just in a low place, and that you're having a hard time in life. That's a lower vibrational state of consciousness. Our thoughts, every single thought that we have, is frequency. It's a thought form, it's energy, like quantum physics talks about. So you are what whatever energy you're putting out there, which means whatever thoughts you're thinking, you're attracting that same thing into your experience. So when people have demonic experiences, they're creating that for themselves. It's another aspect of themselves that they're creating to have an experience to learn from. That's my experience with it. Again, I've never had any kind of negative experience, but I don't know if you want me to bring my mother on so she can share her experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I want to keep a solid thread, but I'd love to hear something from her in this episode for sure. And I just, what? So asking that question, was there ever anything in your entire experience, in your spiritual experience, that scared you? Because you also talked about ETs visiting, and did any of these things ever alarm you, or you're just not in that place to be alarmed by them?
I think because I just know that I'm not going to attract anything negative. It just doesn't exist in my reality. It really doesn't. If you would have asked me a few years ago, do demons exist? I'd tell you no. And the only reason why I hesitate to say no now is because I know other people have had these experiences with these other dimensional beings. But again, these other dimensional beings are another aspect of ourselves. So even if they're scary and they look scary and you think they're there to hurt you, they're not. And when it comes to the abductions, okay, the abductions, let me explain. So the original gray race, right, that started abducting people back in like the 80s, so their race, they're from a parallel reality, and their civilization, their technology got so great that they started to see their emotions as a weakness. So they actually were able to get rid of that emotion, get rid of emotions, because they saw it as a weakness. Let's throw it away with their own DNA. They were messing with their own DNA, and they got to such a high place in their technology that they were ruining their planet, and their planet was becoming ruined, and none of their technology could fix that. So what they first did is they went down into inside the earth to try to bring the human emotion back into their genes, and they weren't able to do that. All they knew that they could do was they needed to find good human DNA out somewhere out there in order to bring it back into their own genes if they wanted their race to survive. So they had to use our technology to find human DNA. And that's when they came upon Earth and they found the human race. And so they started abducting humans. Well, so because people have very fearful experiences with that, right? Like, it's fearful because, think about it like this, like, it's we're not agreeing to this, right? We have no control over it. They can control everything. They don't, they can control everything about your body. They just have that power. Well, it's the same thing as we do to animals, right? People that have a love for lions, they can't just walk up to the lion and be like, hey, let me take your blood pressure, let me do, no, because the lion's going to attack you and kill you. So we have to dart them in order to get close to them to do what we want. Well, we're not that different. We're pretty wild. If we think that we're being taken against our will, we're gonna attack or get crazy. So that's why they paralyze people when they abduct people, to take their DNA or their sperm or their eggs or something like that. But it's for a good reason. There's many different hybrid races, like 5 different hybrid races that have been created from the abductions happening, the hybrid, or the hybrid programs. And actually, the first race that we as a collective on our planet will be meeting is one of those races. So we will be meeting our children literally when the first ET race comes to make contact with all of us on a collective level. It will be literally our children. So we'll be much more accepting of them. Mhm.
So, in other words, we're as a collective race of humans on the earth right now, and on all of this crazy stuff that's been going on in the last few years. And I definitely want to hear your take on that because obviously something strange is happening. Um, will eventually are going to make contact, or at least they're going to reveal themselves to us. Uh, these beings from this other world are going to make themselves known to us collectively. Is that soon? Do you think that's going to happen soon?
Between 2026 and 2027 is around, around there is will be the time that we, so contact has already happened. Our government, okay, has already had contact. They've already had communications with extraterrestrials for since the 40s that I know of. I mean, since the 40s, our government, our military have had contact with extraterrestrial beings. They have meetings with extraterrestrial beings on other planets. I mean, there's, if you realized how much is being hidden from us, it is unbelievable. And it's out, it's out, it's, it pisses you off too, because like they've kept so much from us. But they've, our government, our military, they've been traveling the galaxy with advanced, with these extraterrestrial races or vehicles that they have had since the 40s. Bob Lazar tried to come forth in the 80s and say, look, I worked at Area 51, I know what we're doing at Area 51. But of course the government and the military are going to make him look like a kook, that, he was just making things up. But, he knew then that, we had extraterrestrial craft, and it's, reverse technology. So again, we've been in the universe or in the galaxy traveling for a while. So, but, and then there's a lot of people like me that have had their own, contact. And some people have had even more, way more than I have. I mean, they've had like actual relationships with ET beings for years, so yeah, on a collective level though, there will be a time between 2026 and 2027 that an extraterrestrial race, they're here every day, all the time. They're always here. But during that time, they will make contact on a collective level, meaning that everyone in the world will know, will have an experience seeing them in the skies, because every single person will see them in the skies. Even if you don't look up because you're so busy with your life looking down on your phone, you won't be able to not know that there's, all these craft in the sky, and that, they're here to make contact with us.
In the last few years, it seems like a lot of people have changed and for the worse. And do you think that has anything to do with this shift in consciousness? I mean, there seems to be some kind of major turmoil happening. I'm in my 40s, so it's like looking back, I'd never experienced anything like this where the everyone collectively is going through this crisis. And obviously, a lot of things are being hidden from us. Do you think this is somehow connected to this change in human consciousness?
So the powers that have been controlling our planet definitely want to keep us lower. They want to keep us down. So, and the way that they do that is they fear porn. It's all about fear porn. People that are watching it, listening, reading the newspaper, watching the news, all those things are television. So they're lying to you. They have to keep you in a, it's all about frequency. So yes, the music that they make music in is a frequency that is not coherent with our bodies. And so there's all the toxins and the pollutions, all these things are playing an effect on us. And so the powers that be, they want to keep their power. They don't want us to awaken and unite with one another. They want to keep racism going, because racism keeps us fighting one another. They want these stupid, political parties to keep battling one another. But that's all it is. It's just to keep us at a lower vibrational frequency, which doesn't serve any of us. If we united, regardless of our differences, we, that is what will empower us, and we will create such a blissful experience on planet Earth, because it's possible. It's already there. It's just we have to evaluate. We have to elevate ourselves and stop fighting one another. So yeah, in order for us to have this shift, the darkness must come to the light. So that's why, it seems like it's so hard for all of us. And again, so there's all these different powers going on, right? There's our lives, struggling. The powers that be are making it more difficult for us to keep a shelter over our heads and food in our stomachs. To, they want to keep us distracted, in that way. There's so many different distractions going on. But I think the most important thing I would like to share is that, when you're, trying, it's so important not to fight with your loved ones or to fight with anybody. And, know that, that's not serving anybody to fight, and that we need to learn to forgive one another and to leave the past literally in the past, because the past doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. Our now moment is where the power is at. And in the now moment is when we tend to go into the past, right? And we tend to focus on the past things that have happened, but it doesn't serve us to do that. It really doesn't. And I know it's difficult for people to keep hope, when it seems like the world's just so dark. And that's why it's so aggravating for me to know to be shown this by spirit, and to have to come back to everyone and tell them all these things. And well, they're not seeing this in their reality, but just sit in silence every day, just 20 for 20 minutes, just every day, sit in silence. People are like, I can't meditate. You don't have to meditate. Just sit in silence and, observe your mind. Your mind's going to wander. It's going to start thinking about other things, and just bring it back to the present moment, and just sit in silence, and it will get easier. But that's truly, I believe, where the power lies. And so in eliminating the suffering that we all experience. It empowers us tremendously, and it also can heal your body of all different kinds of diseases.
So, okay, so and we've talked about the traumas and the things keeping people down, your experiences. That's what I was gonna ask you. And going a little further, so how would you recommend that people remedy the situation? How would you recommend that they get their perspective aligned with what you have explained existence is?
Well, well, this life is not everything. This is just, there's a lot of eyes on us right now as well. Like, know that you are truly this magnificent being that never stops existing, and that um we're very loved, and they're washing our feet per se on the other side, because they know how difficult this is. Not everybody comes here because they know how difficult it is, but we are truly are, going to go to the other side with, rewards of just, of how wonderful it was that we came here and had this hard experience. But really, everything is inside of us. I mean, there is this force within us that is universal, and that is more powerful than anything else. And if we can just sit in silence, your guides, you have two guides with you from the moment you're born to the moment you pass. And they're there all the time. I mean, all the time. I mean, you think you're alone, you're never alone, ever. And I'm not saying this because I believe this. I'm saying this because I know this, because I've experienced it. I didn't think there was any guides or anything with me when I was driving home from a session that night, but somehow they're there, and they know when something's about to happen, because look, they intervened for me killing myself in a car accident. So you're never alone. There's guides with you all the time, and they're just waiting to communicate with you. They're waiting to guide you. That's why they're called guides. They're waiting to guide you in your life. And it's really us that get in the way of ourselves. Life is already there to support us, and whatever our dreams are, we just have to get out of our own way, really.
So specifically, what do you recommend meditation? You said sit in silence. Are there a lot of different things like a change in what you're ingesting, your environment, noise, getting rid of technology? Is there a variety of things you could do to kind of connect with that source and also connect to your higher self that you'd mentioned earlier to improve your perspective, your consciousness, to have better things happen? Are there ways to do this?
Yeah, so the formula that's given from higher dimensional beings is to follow your bliss, follow what excites you the most, and in doing that, that's the best. I mean, that's truly who you are, is following your bliss. And yes, of course, what you ingest, plays a part in how you feel 100%, but really you are in control of everything. I mean, your belief systems are controlling your life. And unconsciously, our belief systems don't serve us. They really don't. They come from all different areas of our lives, from society to, your house, your parents, the background of your parents. All these things play a part in how you perceive yourself and how you perceive everyone around you. But yeah, I mean, the most important thing is to meditate, sit in silence and meditate every day. Again, the most important thing as well is to follow your highest excitement. Whatever excites you is what we should do to the best of our ability to do. um, and you do have guides. These guides are there. They will guide you. You will start hearing them talking to you in your head, in your mind. They will make contact with you. There's little signs that they do to let you know that they're around. If you look at the clock and it's 333 all the time, or 222, or if you look at license plates and you're seeing repetitive numbers, that's your guides. That's spirit. That's the non-physical saying, "Hello, we're here. We're here to support you in whatever you want to do." um, and we're all equal. I'm not better, I'm not above anybody else, I'm just as equal as everybody else. So it's just important that people know that they too are open to this connection, not just some of us. We all have this capability to connect and really live our dreams out.
You grew up in this environment. Your mother had her own perspective, so I'd love to hear a story from your mom, because you said it's somewhat different than your perspective, and she's had some, I guess, darker, haunting type experiences. And I definitely, so after that, I'd like to come back to you and get a closing thought. But if your mom's interested in telling me a story, I'm all ears.
Okay, here she is.
Hi, my
Hello,
name is Eva. Hello, very nice to meet you.
nice to meet
Thank you
you.
for having us. Yeah, following my daughter, she's so eloquent and I'm so proud of her. I'm just sitting here listening and, she's always been, um, I've never, shocked or surprised, but I'm always in awe, and just like sitting here with her, I'm just learning even more, about her. But my experiences were both really beautiful, and then there were some that weren't so beautiful. The darker sides. My God bless my mother. She used to have seances, and we would have these gatherings, and sometimes you can allow entities to come in with that. And so without having the demonic side of it, it's just the darker energy. It's a lower frequency. And so I actually did experience a poltergeist experience. I had that actually happen to me.
And
And
what so bring me back there if you can. What
oh,
happened that day and what led up to it? As if we were sitting around a campfire. I'm so interested in these stories.
um, let's see. Well, I was actually going through a divorce, and Tasha, and I was a preteen, and it was a tough time, and I was really working really hard just to raise her and her brother, and stay positive, and the person in my life was pretty dark, and just was kind of bringing that around. But it was a combination of that, and then at the home that we lived in, there were several deaths there. And so sometimes these souls, these spirits will hang around because they're in between lives. And for me now, I know that it's an honor actually to see that and to help them pass through, because some of them get stuck. But this one was a very, very dark. And I mean, I could describe it to you. It was like you hear like the troll type. It was about 2.5 feet tall, and actually woke me up. Was attacking me in my bed,
Oh, wow.
and yeah, this really happened. Like, if this isn't imagined, or
No,
I
I've
wasn't under
heard
the influence or
variations of this.
anything.
No, you're on the right show for this story. Don't you're not
Oh,
being
good.
judged. Trust me.
Okay. Okay. Well, I kind of wish, Christoph, that it hadn't happened, but again, I don't have any fear around it anymore. I did at the time. I mean, like, I wouldn't sleep in the bedroom for like 6 months, and it was very real for me. I actually had bruising on my body. I had items missing from my room, personal, intimate items. And I did. My mother is a psychic. She's actually helped find missing people with the police, and I asked her to come and do a blessing and a clearing, kind of like the movie, like, "This house is clean." Remember when she says that?
Sure. Well,
I don't
that
know if you
that all
know
comes
the.
from somewhere and from real experiences. All that stuff in Poltergeist did. On the night that you were attacked, and again, there was a famous case. And there was a book written and then a movie with Barbara Hershey in the early 80s, The Entity,
Yes,
if you remember that. So
I
Doris
remember
Byther was
very
the
well.
real woman. Carla Moran was the fictitious one. And there's a similar, and these similar things have attacked people throughout history for sure. So you're laying in bed that night, and and it's very it's somewhat, I mean, it's similar and different at the same time to what Tasha experienced, because as she's kind of in awe of these things and they didn't attack her. And in your case, this thing came out of nowhere. Was it that you were just resting or you were asleep? What it,
I was asleep actually. I was asleep, and he woke me up. He was sitting on my chest,
oh wow.
um, and actually fondling me, like
Yeah, and this has
fondling me.
happened to a lot of people. And what do you, I mean,
Right.
so
Well, I think honestly, part of it, like we were, Tosh was talking about attraction, and I was feeling at that time, honestly, I was feeling very low. I was going through another divorce. I wasn't feeling, like loved and appreciated, and that it just, my own, person, had been lowered, and I allowed that to happen, through that relationship, but I think that that's a big part of it. And the good news is that you can regain your sacredness and your divinity, and know that it doesn't have to be that way. And then, like I said, I took honor in awareness and helping that entity, like, to heal. And then I'll bring it to another experience that I had that was very healing. Was in a past life I was a black knight, and I knew this, through being attuned to Reiki. My Reiki master was attuning me, and I was having these visions of this black knight. And all of a sudden, like, for a couple of weeks, my right arm was hurting so bad, and I could barely use it, and it wasn't due to anything that I had done. And she said, "Well, let's go into session, a healing session, meditation." And he actually came. I saw his silhouette standing right next to her. Tony Johnson was her name, and he was asking for forgiveness. Like, this awareness, it was kind of like, okay, this is what I did, and I hurt a lot of people and killed, and so, I'm coming to you for this awareness so that I can be forgiven. I want to be forgiven. And then that soul, spirit, consciousness can go on to the next life, because there are some stuck like that. Um, but, I've had really, really beautiful ones too, where, I've been with people when they've passed, and I've seen them leave, and been in the room where it's just so full of light that you can't even see. Like they talk about in the NDEs, that the light is so bright, that you can't even look into it, and and then that feeling of beauty, of unconditional love, that it fills you in so many ways you can't ever describe it. It's not like, um, you know, you just can't put any description to it other than it's just the most beautiful feeling you'll ever know, and it fills you with such a peace and a and hope, and just to know that no matter what, we can heal. Everything can heal. Everyone can heal, and we that's I believe that's what we're here to do, is to love one another and forgive, and have more.
Can I just chime in, Christopher, for a second? I just want to give you my
sure, I'm
perspective.
truly enjoying both of your stories, but yes, of course.
Okay, so from my perspective, this troll that came and was fondling my mother, it was because she was in this lower vibrational place, going through another divorce, her third divorce. But these are other aspects of ourselves. Like I said, our oversoul has is living many different lives at the same time, and it's not always a human life. It could be a troll. It could be, a troll is part of the elemental realm. Trolls, fairies, all those little beings, they all exist. They just exist in a slightly higher frequency than our eyes are able to perceive. So if we believed in them, then we would be able to see them. And there's actually many other races, like bird, human-like beings that live right here on Earth, in our forests, in our home, in our on our planet, in our reality. but we just can't see them. And because we don't believe in them, we really don't see them. But when you start opening your conscious awareness to the possibility of these things existing, you start perceiving them. So I believe that that was another aspect of my mom, meaning it's another part of her oversoul that was just teasing with her. You know, fairies and trolls, they're known for being mischievous and, messing with people. They are known for that. So that's my perspective on that experience for my mom.
So, in other words, you're saying, and again, in other places, they're perceived as demons. You're being attacked by demons. That all of this
Mhm.
stuff is an
Right.
extension of ourselves somehow. We're
Right.
psychically projecting it into our reality.
Yes.
By opening ourselves up and being open to the
Okay.
possibilities, yes.
Or
Now, and the way I've looked at this, and if you look at Aleister Crowley, who was talking about his real experiences. And then you go back to H.P. Lovecraft, which I also believe he was having some real experiences, and he wrote that in fiction, is that both were describing some kind of amorphous energy that now manifests into these things. Like it's there in those stories, and it's there in Crowley's philosophy. Like there's this just kind of overall amorphous energy. It could come in as really bad, or it could be manipulated into good. Is there something similar to that?
Yeah, it's a vibrational thing. Whatever you're vibrating at is what you're going to attract into your experience. And it is so important to see whatever this thing is as another aspect of yourself. Because everything is truly ultimately another aspect of ourselves. Because we all come from the one. So when people have an experience with some demonic being, it's their consciousness that is creating it. They're creating that experience for some learning, to learn something.
Well, I want to say that when mom was having these seances and she didn't know really what she was doing, she was opening up these like portals. And we were like our homes, every home that I'd had been haunted, so to speak. And what it was is these energies that would come around, and there was a lot of trauma, growing up, and I love my family dearly, and God bless them, and we all just have our childhood traumas and whatnot, but it just kind of kept happening and following us around. I mean, this has happened with my sisters. They've done a lot of healing around it, and so I think the most important thing is to get to a place where we're not in fear of that we don't empower those energies, and that we know that that we are more, you know, our divinity and our sacredness is so much more. I don't like to use the word powerful, but it's so much more, um, than than anything else in the world. That we can overcome anything through that
Sure,
if we
and you've
see
had a lot of
ourselves.
experiences. How did you ultimately overcome? Was it shifting your perspective? And I also have another question after that. But so conquering these things, like when did that troll-like or demon-like character?
You know what he only came around once.
Okay,
Yeah, he just came around once. I've had these other ones that come. I can actually feel the energy coming close to my home. Like I'll feel it miles away, and I'll feel like, and it's not really that it's miles away. It's just that it's in my consciousness. This is my experience in my in a place of fear. My Did I have a bad day? Experience something that might make me feel sad, or more fearful, or whatnot. And so I do a lot of praying. I believe in prayer, like, because it's, to me, it's not about God. It's about your intention. And my life, I believe that everything is about intention. If I intend to call upon, like, I work with the Holy Spirit as one of my main, guides and protection, and because it's true and pure, the true pure love light. I call upon that, and I do that, and it's just instant. Like, it's instantly gone. And I get to choose. If I choose to do that, like Tasha's saying, it's a choice. And sometimes, I'll even argue with myself, all during the day. Yes, I can. No, I can't. Yes, I can. And I have to remind myself that, yes, I can. And that that they really don't have, like, Tasha's saying, there is no such thing as possession. We really kind of decide if we want to.